Welcome to the Wisdom That Breathes channel. Across all our platforms, we try to share wisdom which is relevant and accessible to everyone. But on this particular platform, we go deeper into some of the ancient principles found within the scriptures. If you find some of the terminology difficult or inaccessible, then go over to our Keshava Swami YouTube channel where you'll be able to find other content which is perhaps more relatable. Thank you and enjoy the wisdom that breathes. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I can understand you all live busy lives, but you still made the time to come. And we promise you we'll keep everything in time today. So I think it's 7:10 now, so we'll go till about 8:15. We have 4 days and we'll be discussing this very, very interesting, very, very beautiful topic of devotional service and the three modes of nature. Before I do that, I pray for your blessings and permission. Many of you are more established in devotional service than me, but I'll raise some points for discussion and then I hope we'll all learn something. And request the permission of His Grace Umapati Prabhu, who's a great inspiration in his service here to create such a wonderful yatra with in cooperation with so many of you, so please give me your blessings. And in this way we will proceed. Devotional service is a privilege. Seva adhikara diye koro nija dasi. Every morning we pray that please give me the privilege of devotional service. The opportunity to begin this path of actually having the opportunity to give your heart in service to Krishna should never be taken for granted, because Brahmanda Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jeev. For many, many lifetimes we were traveling in this universe, up and down, in many species, many planets, and we never had that opportunity. We were basically lost in space. There used to be a program, Lost in Space. So that was basically all of us. But somehow or other we began this journey of devotional service, and our life becomes extraordinary when you begin devotional service. Once my mum came to me one day. It was very, very sweet. You know, for mothers, when you become a monk, it's not easy, you know, it's a little painful. So one day she came to me and she said, very, very sincerely from her heart, she said, "Can't you just be normal?" I said, "Mom, it's too late." Now we can't be normal anymore, isn't it? As soon as you became a devotee, put your hands up if when you begun this journey of devotional service, you expected yourself to get this serious about it. No one. One diehard. Yeah. Most of us, we never had that plan. It was like, yeah, this is nice, these people are nice, this process is nice. We never realized that it would take over our life in such a way, isn't it? When you take up devotional service, your lifestyle changes, your desires change, your vision of life changes, the people you hang around with changes, how you talk, how you walk, how you live completely changes, everything changes. And therefore, spiritual life changes our life so much. And devotional service in this way is meant to change our life, because as souls we were heading in the wrong direction, and then we got a sense of what is actually the higher aspiration, the higher goal, and then we redirected our lives. So now here we are, all on this path of devotional service. But it's not an easy path. Is it an easy path? One time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he came to Srila Prabhupada and he said, "Srila Prabhupada, I thought you said this was easy." Prabhupada said, "I didn't say it was easy. I said it was simple." It's simple, but not easy, because Prabhupada said simple for the
Simple, because we are not simple. We have many desires, many different deviant psychologies, many different hidden intentions, and therefore our devotional service is not always necessarily pure. But until pure devotional service arises, there can be no satisfaction of the soul, isn't it? Therefore, one of the most famous verses of the Bhagavatam tells us, Savai pumsham paro dharma yato bhakti radhoksaje ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. That in order for devotion to fully satisfy the self, atma suprasidati, then it has to have two qualifications. Ahaituki, no motivation. Does that mean you're completely uninspired in devotional service? No motivation means anya abhilashita sunyam, no more material motivations. And apratihata means no more interruption. Your service should just continue on and on without any sense of interruption. And when devotional service has these two qualities, then it will atma suprasidati, completely satisfy the self. To the extent that we haven't developed these two qualities, we will be in devotional service, but we will feel some level of dissatisfaction, some level of vacuum, some level of, yeah, it's nice, but still I feel like I need to do something else in my life for pleasure, because it's not fully satisfying my need for pleasure. Therefore, of those in the world, maybe 0.01% come to spiritual life. But of the 0.01% that come to spiritual life, 0.01% are maybe in pure devotional service. Therefore Krishna says, Manusyanam sahasreshu kashkit yatati siddhaye. Out of many thousands, one may try. And out of those who are trying, maybe one may perfect it. Therefore, there is a gulf of difference between those who are performing devotional service in the modes and that rare personality who is performing devotional service in complete purity. And that is what we're going to look at today and for the next 3 days. What are the characteristics of devotional service in the three modes, which ultimately may give you some experience, but not the full experience that will satisfy the soul. So what does devotional service in the three modes look like? Last week when we were at the training center, we were talking about overcoming mediocrity in spiritual life. And we were talking about how only 2 types of people are happy in this world. Remember who those 2 types of people are? One is the one who is completely ignorant. And the second one is? One who is in pure devotional service. Everyone in between is somewhat unhappy or somewhat unsatisfied, let's say. And so what does it mean to come to pure devotional service? This is what we're going to be looking at. But before we do that, for one moment, I just want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them, and you can only say one thing. What do you think is the main thing which stops you from moving towards pure devotional service? What is the main obstacle in your life that is stopping you from moving or practicing pure devotion? Just for one moment, just tell the person next to you. Okay. Someone to shout out some of the things that are stopping you from pure devotional service. Don't be shy. Yes. Technology. Thank you for being very honest. Yes, technology, distraction. Technology distracts you, right? Technology wastes your time sometimes. Technology starts Yeah, infusing desires within you that you don't really want. Yeah, what else? Attachments. To anything in particular? Anything, anyone, yeah. There's so many types of attachments to unhelpful situations, unhelpful mindsets, unhelpful people maybe. Yeah, what else?
Lack of dedication.
Senses. Your sense gratification and your desires for other things, your attractions, the things that you're tempted by. Oscar Wilde, he said, I can resist everything except temptation. Yeah, temptation, not so easy to resist. Yeah, someone else said something?
Lack of dedication.
Lack of dedication, to be able to be focused, to be consistent. Spiritual life is actually not difficult. But what's difficult is the everyday principle, to do it every day, to show up every single day with that level of dedication and focus. That's not easy. Madhvacharya, he says, I don't measure a person by how much they can do in one day. I measure them by what they do every day. That's the real test. Where are you at every day? Yes. What else is blocking you? Yes.
Love for money.
Love for the mind.
Money.
Oh, love for the mind. Yes, Krishna says, Bhogeshwarya prashaktanam taya parat chetasham vyavasyatmika buddhi. That if you're attached to bhoga and aishwarya, enjoyment and opulence, the resolute determination doesn't take place. So yes, money, money, money is not so easy to give up. Yes, what else? What is blocking you? No blocks? Yes.
Not enough faith.
Laziness. Yes, lethargy, laziness. Even though you know what you have to do, when you have to do it, how you have to do it, somehow or other to come out of the blocks in the morning is not so easy. Yes.
Not having enough faith.
Faith, lack of faith. And that means we're constantly, Krishna actually says we're being constantly attacked by doubts. Sometimes we have doubts about whether this is true. Sometimes we have doubts about whether I'll be able to do it. Sometimes we have doubts about the movement, the process. We could have so many doubts about different things, and therefore Krishna says, Shamshayatma vinashyati. If you're filled by doubts, then you won't get the supreme destination. Yes, so we have to overcome. Yes, Keval.
Me and my mind.
Me and my mind. The relationship with the mind. Yes, the mind is a real Chanchalam himana Krishna brahmati balavadridam. Always moving, distracting, negativity, limiting, acting as an enemy. Yes.
Postponement.
Postponement. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it in the future. I'll do it when this works out. Yes, so I'll do it someday. Not Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I'll do it someday. Undefined. Yes, these are some of the things. Devotional service basically means three things. Devotional service means action. It means you have to do something. Remember, Srila Prabhupada, he never translated bhakti simply as devotion. He translated it as devotional service. Anukulyena Krishna anu nishilanam. Anushilanam means you act, you have to do something. It's not just an emotion. So our love, our pure love will never awaken unless we're active. We have to do something. We have to do something with our senses. But just acting is not enough. Devotional service also means attention. We have to do it with our senses, but we also have to bring our mind to be present. How many times are we doing something but our mind is in a completely different place? Have you ever tried to watch one of those movies where they've dubbed the sound so that the person's mouth is moving but the voice comes out like half a second later? Isn't it so annoying to be out of sync? Can you watch a movie like that? No. So imagine Krishna accepting our devotion, he's watching our life and is completely out of sync. Because we're doing something but our mind is like 100 days in the past or 100 days in the future. It's very difficult, it's not pleasing. Therefore we have to be attentive. But devotional service doesn't just mean to bring your senses through action. It doesn't mean just to bring your mind through attention, but it means ultimately also to bring intention, to bring your heart into it. And therefore, when Bhagavatam is saying ahaitukiya pratihata, it has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. These are basically the elements that have to be incorporated in order for that to happen. There has to be action, there has to be attention, and there has to be intention. And we have to constantly ask ourselves, where are we at in these three elements? Because it's not enough just to have a good intention, but then you don't do action. Or no, I'm doing so many actions, but I don't give attention to it. No, all three have to be combined together. Otherwise, the full circle of devotion is not created and the result that we desire won't be attained. Where there is action, attention, and intention, love will come about. There's no doubt about it. There can't be any shadow of a doubt. But if love is not coming, if for years and years we're practicing devotional service but still some love is not manifesting in our lives, then we must understand there is a defect in one or more of these areas. And love is the real thing. Because Bhagavatam, what Bhagavatam does is very interesting. What Bhagavatam does is it basically inverts the hierarchy. It tells us that one who has love, they are actually the most advanced. We have different notions of what symbolizes advancement. Like say for example, sometimes we think ashram signifies advancement. Therefore if one is a renunciate, if one is a sannyasi, then naturally they're more advanced than a grihastha. But then what does the Bhagavatam do? It inverts the hierarchy. It shows you a story of someone who's supposedly in a lower ashram, Ambarish, who's a king, who's a grihastha, who's busy, who has many, many duties in the world, but he is shown to be more advanced than Durvasa Muni, who is a tyagi, who is a renunciate. Why? Because Ambarish has love. Then we may think of species. Obviously the demigods are higher than the demons, naturally, of course. No, the Bhagavatam says, even someone born in a demoniac family, possessing a demoniac body, they can be considered higher than a demigod if they have devotion. And who is the example? Vritrasura fights who? Indra. And in that battle, the speech of Vritrasura clearly shows that although he's in a demoniac family, he's higher, he's more elevated because he has love. Sometimes we look at gender and we think, yes, the men are the gurus, the men are the leaders, the men are generally the ones who are considered the spiritual examples. But then what does the Bhagavatam show? That there are wives who are much more advanced than their husbands. The Yagyak Brahmanas were doing all their mantra, tantra, visharada, they were doing everything perfectly. And when Krishna came to, or when the Gopas came to request for some prasadam, they just ignored them. Whereas the wives gave everything. Therefore, it doesn't matter. One may be in this gender or that gender. Whoever has love, they are the highest. We sometimes think of advancement in terms of varna. Yes, the Brahmanas are higher than the Sudras. Well, right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the scene is at Naimisharanya. And all the sages, the thousands of sages have assembled at Naimisharanya and they are all Paka Brahmanas. But when Sutta Goswami, who is actually considered to be of lower birth, arrives, then everyone immediately understands he is a Mahapurush, he is a great soul, he should take the seat and he should instruct all of us. Doesn't matter about Varna, who has love, that's what matters. Sometimes we think age is important. The older are naturally more advanced. Of course, we always show respect to our seniors. However, the Bhagavatam shows us that even someone younger, someone as young as Dhruva or someone as young as Prahlad, if they have devotion, if they have love, then they're considered higher. So that is not the measure of advancement, age. And we may also think class, maybe those who are more refined, those who are civilized, those who are born in a certain amount of opulence and access to spiritual culture, maybe they are higher than just the street people. Well, then you have Jada Bharat, who's a palanquin carrier. And who is he carrying on the palanquin? Rahugana. And at one point, Rahugana has to come off the palanquin and stand down and bow to Jada Bharat, because he says, by your speech, I can understand you are way more elevated than me. You've controlled your mind. You have love. And therefore you're higher. So the Bhagavatam, basically, you see the stories in the Bhagavatam are not just random. The stories in the Bhagavatam are strategically there to teach us something. What is the ultimate measure of someone's advancement? Don't look at anything external. It's all ultimately to do with how much pure devotion that they've developed within their own heart. Now, we may not be in pure devotion. Most of us, if we're honest, then we are being affected by the three modes of material nature. All of you are familiar with the three modes of material nature, isn't it? Rajas, Tamas, and Sattva. Let me just do a quick check to make sure all of you are on the same page about the three modes of nature. What I'm going to do is I'm going to shout out some activities, and I want you to tell me whether those activities, just shout out goodness, passion or ignorance, just to refresh our memory so that we all know what these modes stand for. Okay. Ready? You have to shout, yeah? Ignorance, passion or goodness. Gossiping.
Ignorance.
There's some debate there. Ignorance or passion? Passion generally means you're achieving something. Does gossip achieve anything? No. Therefore, we can generally say gossip is actually ignorance, not even passion, because it's just a complete waste of time. Revising 6 months before your exam. Passion? What's goodness then? I don't know, maybe things have changed since my time. But in my time, if you revise 6 months before your exam, that was pretty goodness, you know. We normally used to do 1 month before, maybe 1 week before. Okay, anyway. Oversleeping?
Ignorance.
Arriving late to a meeting?
Passion.
I think passion. Stockbroking? Bitcoins? Cryptocurrency? Just checking. Not making a statement here. It's okay if that's what you do. Giving in a relationship without expecting a return.
Goodness.
Video gaming.
Goodness.
Not allowing somebody to hurt you.
Goodness.
Wow, I had ignorance, passion and goodness there. That one required, let's skip that one out. Take too much time to. Stealing. Ignorance. But you're achieving something. So you can see there's overlaps. But you get a sense of where we are in the modes. The modes are important to understand. Did you know that in the Gita, do you know how many verses out of the 700 verses of the Gita are to do with the modes of nature? You know how many? Never guess. How many do you think? 222. Wow. Not that many. Krishna spends 100 verses of the 700 verses talking about the modes of nature because they're so important, because the modes of nature are affecting everything. The modes of nature are around us and they're also within us. The modes of nature are all pervading. So they're around us in all the objects and things of the world, in the food we eat, they're in the modes. The places we're surrounded by, or the places we live in, the times of day, the clothes we wear, all of these things are in the modes of nature. But the modes of nature are not just around us, the modes of nature are also within us. And therefore our faith can be in different modes. Our determination can be in different modes. Our desires can be in different modes. And even our devotion can be in different modes of nature. So therefore, devotional service can also be affected by the modes of nature. Now, devotional service is pure. Can devotional service ever be contaminated? Can bhakti ever be contaminated? Bhakti is completely independent. Therefore, it's not that bhakti is contaminated by the modes, but it's that we have an intention which is tainted by the modes of nature with which we practice bhakti, and in that sense devotional service is in the three modes of material nature. So this is what we're going to be discussing. The Bhagavatam, as I was mentioning, is very, very systematic in how it reveals to us devotional service and pure love for Krishna. So if you look at the end of the third canto, then right at the end of the third canto, we find basically 9 chapters in which there is an interaction or the story of Devahuti, Kardama Muni, and then later on we hear about Kapila Dev, who's their son. And then later on we hear about how Kardama Muni renounces the world, and when he renounces the world, then Kapila Dev begins to instruct Devahuti in many, many different aspects of devotion. But one of the main things that Kapila Dev instructs Devahuti about is that devotional service can be in 3 modes of material nature. Now, the commentators say that the Bhagavatam is very, very systematic, so the description of devotional service in the 3 modes of nature doesn't stop at the end of the third canto. Because what then happens is in the first part of the 4th canto, does anyone remember the story that begins the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam? Does anyone remember which story comes first? Yes, Sati, Shiva and Daksha. And what the commentators say is that this story actually is strategically placed there because now Kapila Dev has spoken to Devahuti about devotional service in the 3 modes. The first story in the 4th canto of the Bhagavatam epitomizes devotional service in ignorance. Because Daksha has theological belief. Daksha is performing spiritual practices. Daksha, in many, many ways, is pious and dharmic. But at the same time, Daksha has anger. Daksha has envy. Daksha has some sense of ignorance in his mentality that taints his devotion. And therefore, strategically, that story is placed there because it epitomizes devotional service in ignorance. Does anyone remember which is the next story that appears in the 4th canto after the story of Daksha? Sri Gauranga is not allowed to. Dhruva Maharaj, exactly. So Dhruva Maharaj, that story is strategically placed there because that story epitomizes someone who began their devotion in the mode of passion. Sthana bilasi tapasi stitoham tvam praptavan deva muni tribuyam. What did Daksha say? What did Dhruva say? Sthana bilasi. I had a abhilas. I had a desire for what? Sthana. I wanted a kingdom. I wanted a kingdom greater than my great grandfather. And therefore, tapasi stitoham. I situated myself in tapasya. In other words, devotional service in passion means devotional service that we perform when we want something. When we want some material fame, we want some material power, we want some material reward, we want some kind of material control. Therefore, this story epitomizes devotional service in passion. And does anyone know what story appears in the 4th canto straight after Dhruva? Prithu, yes. Prithu is the emblem of ideal leadership. And Prithu is doing sacrifices. He's performing righteous activities for the pleasure of the Supreme. And he represents devotional service in goodness because he has no attachment. He has no material gain that he's looking for. But he's performing devotional service for the purpose of purification out of duty and out of a sense of how to elevate and progress himself. And therefore, can you begin to see how the Bhagavatam is not just random? When we look very, very closely, the Bhagavatam is training us. And this is very, very important because when we start looking at ourselves, when we start looking at how we practice spiritual life, we may begin to start seeing that there are elements of ignorance, passion and goodness in how we're actually practicing our bhakti, and that needs to be rooted out. Now I'm going to read you a purport that appears from the 3rd canto where devotional service in the modes is being explained. And I'm going to ask you a question on this purport in a second, but just let me read it first. Devotional service is in the modes of ignorance, passion, and goodness. Can be divided into 81 categories. There are different devotional activities such as hearing, chanting, remembering, worshipping, offering prayer, rendering service, and surrendering everything. And each of them can be divided into 3 qualitative categories. There is hearing in the mode of passion, in the mode of ignorance, and in the mode of goodness. Similarly, there is chanting in the mode of ignorance, passion, and goodness. 3 multiplied by 9 equals 27. And when again multiplied by 3, it becomes 81. One has to transcend all such mixed materialistic devotional service in order to reach the standard of pure devotional service. Okay? This is very scientific. So how many modes of nature are there?
3.
How many processes, primary process of devotional service are there? 9. It's clear. So we know about the 9 processes of devotional service. First one is Shravanam, hearing. Who perfected that one? Parikshit. Kirtanam, who perfected that one? Sukadev Goswami. Smaranam, who perfected that one? Prahlad. Archanam, who perfected that one? Prithu, deity worship. Vandanam, who perfected that one? Offering prayers. Akrura. Dasyam, servitude, who perfected that one? Hanuman. Sakyam, who perfected that one? Arjuna. Atmanivedanam, who perfected that? Bali Maharaj. Okay, so it's clear. There are 9 processes of devotional service and there are 3 modes of nature. And therefore, all of these 9 activities can be in 3 modes of nature. But here, Srila Prabhupada says devotional service can be divided into 81 categories. So how do we get 81? Here, Srila Prabhupada says 3 multiplied by 9 equals 27. So that's clear. 3 modes multiplied by 9 processes is 27. But then Srila Prabhupada says, and when again multiplied by 3, it becomes 81. So what is that other 3 that makes 81 types of devotional service? Can anyone guess? Because Srila Prabhupada doesn't actually say it, what that other 3 is. The first 3 is the 3 modes of nature, and the 9 is the 9 processes, but to get 81 you have to multiply it by 3 again. What is that other 3 that you multiply to make 27 into 81? Does anyone know?
Is it what you mentioned earlier, action, intent?
Oh, that's a good try. Not exactly, but good try. Karma, jnana, and good try, but not exactly. Yes.
The effect of the 3 modes in each.
The effect of the 3 modes in the 3 modes of nature. So you're saying in passion there can be,
In each process.
yeah, so that's 3 by 9, but that's 27.
Yeah, but then even in that 27 there is again an effect of 3.
Another 3, okay.
Right.
Okay, you're getting closer? Yes. Basically, if you look at the verses of the 3rd canto, then in the verse can actually be split into 3. And therefore, this is explained in Sridhar Swami's commentary. In the verse which describes devotional service in ignorance, there are actually 3 types of devotional service in ignorance. Devotional service which is violent, devotional service performed with a sense of pride, and devotional service imbued with anger and envy. So Srila Prabhupada, he doesn't actually explicitly state it in the purport, but he's actually drawing from Sridhar Swami's commentary. And in Bhavarta Deepika, Sridhar Swami is telling us that although the verse is 1, within that verse there are 3 divisions in ignorance, passion and goodness. And therefore 3 times 3 is 9, and 9 times 9 is 81. And therefore that is the 81 types of bhakti. The 9 processes times by Matsaryam bhakti, which is bhakti performed with envy. Dambam bhakti means bhakti performed with pride. Himsa, bhakti performed with violence. Vishayan, bhakti performed with a desire for sense gratification. Yasha, devotional service performed with the desire for some fame. Aishwaryam, devotional service performed with the desire to gain some opulence. Karma nirharanam, devotional service performed because one wants to get rid of their karma. Parasmin, devotional service in which one is offering to the other without out of duty. And yajet, devotional service which is done as a worship according to scriptural regulation. These are the 9 types of basic mode that you can perform any of these devotional activities in. And therefore 9 times 9 equals 81. And therefore when we're doing devotional service, there is a chance that we may be practicing or including one or more of these mentalities and intentions within our bhakti. And if any of these 9 enter, then there is a sense in which there is a block from pure devotional service. And that's why this is so, this knowledge is so valuable, because through this knowledge you will be able to reflect and pinpoint why it is that perhaps we're not making as much advancement as we should. Because sometimes we look at our lives and we think, my God, I've been practicing for so long, but I don't feel like I'm making progress. I don't feel like I have an experience. I don't feel this spontaneous love coming in my heart that the scriptures talk about. And this knowledge can help us, if we're honest and sincere, it can help us to actually uncover what might there be in how we're approaching devotional service that is blocking us from that purity which creates this very beautiful connection with Krishna. Okay? Does anyone have any questions on this so far? It's clear? Are you with me? You have a question? No. Okay. Okay, so this is the 81 types of bhakti. And this is complex because it's not that the modes are constantly in flux, right? So usually our devotional service is mixed. It's not that we are just in ignorance or just in passion or just in goodness. It's usually that we have elements of all of these in different degrees. Not just that, but there are gradations. So that, for example, we may be in devotional service in passion, but someone's passion may be closer to the side of goodness, and someone else's passion may be closer to the side of ignorance. So even within a mode, there are many gradations. But not just that, the modes are constantly in flux. So at different times, different modes of nature may overcome us. And different modes of nature may become more prominent than other modes of nature. And not just that, by spiritual practice, by deliberate, conscious practice, we can actually change the modes that we are in. And so therefore, when we look at these categories, we won't just be able to place ourselves under one category, but what we will begin to see is that characteristics of each one of these categories are entering our devotional service and therefore blocking us from this purity that we seek. So I'm just going to show you the 3 verses which actually talk about these different types of devotional service. So you can repeat after me. Abhisandhaya yohim sham dambam matsaryam evava samrambhi vinadrik bhavam Mayi kuryat satamasaha. So this is the first thing that Kapila Dev says to Devahuti. Devotional service executed by a person who is envious, proud, violent and angry, and who is a separatist is considered to be in the mode of darkness. So what we're actually going to see is that there are shastric examples of individuals who are doing devotional service and were completely imbued with the mode of ignorance. And when we look at our lives, we may think, yeah, I'm not like them. But what we will begin to see is that some of these tendencies of being envious, proud, violent towards others, and angry actually begin to come into our devotional service. And that helps us to understand where we may be going wrong. Yes, just take a note of this. Then, devotional service is being, in passion, is being described. Vishayana Visandhaya Yasha Aishvaryameva Archada Varchayed Yomam Pritag Bhava Sarajasaha. What you'll find in every single one of these definitions is that this word, Pritag Bhav, appears everywhere. Anyone who is not in pure devotional service has some element of Pritag Bhav. What does Pritag Bhav means? A separatist mentality. They see themselves and Krishna in some way as separate. And therefore some material motivation then begins to enter into their practice. Surrender means seeing no separation between me and Krishna. No separation? Is that Mayavad? No. No separation means no separation of will. I completely align my will with Krishna's will. I completely align my desires with Krishna's desires. One of the etymological meanings of the word Vraja, Vraja we know is Vrindavan, but Vraja, the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, Vraja also means to walk. So the residents of Vraja are called Vrajabasis because they are always walking with Krishna. In other words, they are completely in line with Krishna. They are completely aligned with Krishna. They're completely in sync with Krishna. But someone in the mode of passion, the worship of the deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. So this is very, very subtle, because we may think, no, all for Krishna, everything for Krishna. But deep inside of us, there are these other pritak bhav, these other motivations, because still we don't have the full faith that if we give our heart and mind to Krishna, then everything will be okay. Therefore, we still are holding something back for ourselves. This is devotional service in the mode of passion. Can you see here? This is what Sridhar Swami has done. In the verse, it is just mentioned as one, as a stream of qualities, but he actually mentions that they are divisions within ignorance, passion, and goodness. And then devotional service in goodness. This is how Kapila Dev explains it. Karmanirharanam udisya parasmin vatadarpanam yajit yastavyamiti va pritak bhava sasatvikaha. Now when you look at this, you think this is pretty good. But even this is not enough. When a devotee worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead and offers the results of his activities in order to free himself from the inebrities of fruitive activities, his devotion is in the mode of goodness. And therefore, devotional service in the mode of goodness means that devotional service which is not done for material gain, but there is some sense of desire for purification. There is some sense of desire that I will be rid of different types of karma or reactions. And because that is prevalent in the mind, still it has not become pure devotional service. So we will see, when we look at these verses, we will see that there are elements of each one of these. And when we do the 9 processes of devotional service, we may see that in certain services, certain characteristics come up more than others. And therefore it's a great opportunity for us to do some introspection and see how we can refine the quality. So what we're going to do tomorrow is look at devotional service in ignorance and passion. Then the next day we will look at devotional service in goodness. And in the final day, we will look at devotional service in pure goodness. And not just devotional service in pure goodness, but what is the very special type of devotional service that has been given to us by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the devotional service that takes place in Vrindavan, in a very spontaneous, loving, intimate, and heartfelt way. We're going to try to understand a little bit about what that kind of devotional service looks like. So today was just the beginning, just to set the foundations of this. The time is 8 o'clock, so we said we won't go past 10 past 8 or 8:15 because we have 4 days and it's still a weekday, so we don't want to keep you too long. But we have 10 minutes, so they told me to stop at 8 o'clock. So let me stop here and see whether, for these last few minutes that we have, whether you may have any questions or clarifications, or so far anything more you'd like to ask about anything described so far. Yes.
In the verse that describes devotional service in the mode of goodness, the translation by Srila Prabhupada does not exactly divide the three different qualities. Could you please help us derive them from this?
Yes, thank you. Yes, there are many, many verses like this. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita is mentioned, Krishna Tulya Bhagavata Vibhu Sarva Shrai Prati Shloke Prati Akshare Nana Arthakai. Krishna Tulya Bhagavata, the Bhagavatam is Krishna himself. Vibhu Shrai is completely unlimited. And then the next line, Kaviraj Goswami says, Prati Shloke, in every single shloka, Prati Akshare, in every single syllable, Nana Arthakai, there are many, many different meanings. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada here has translated it in a certain way, not necessarily outlining these three different points. But in the commentary of Sridhar Swami, he isolates these three words. Karma nirhara means to get rid of karma. Tadarpanam means that which is offered to Krishna out of duty. And yajet yastavyam means that which is done out of worship for the purpose of purification. So Sridhar Swami actually says there are three different things mentioned here. This often happens in Shastra. Like I show you another verse of the Bhagavatam. Okay, it may take me some time to get that. I'll show you if I have time, but I'll take another question. But if I have time, I'll show you another verse in which this happens. But you get the point, basically, right? That in every verse, there are many ways to look at it. So sometimes Srila Prabhupada, he will just combine many things and give one statement. But then what commentators may do is they may break it apart and show us a more analytical way to look at that. And sometimes it may work the other way. Commentators may give just a summarized, and Srila Prabhupada may break it apart. So therefore, different commentators are basically complementing each other's descriptions in order to give greater insight. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Yes, I'm listening.
My question is, what is the relationship between Ekadashi and these modes of material nature, and why fasting is considered very crucial for devotional service?
So what is the connection between Ekadashi and the modes of nature? So let's take it more generally. What is the connection between fasting and the modes of nature? Right? So therefore, fasting can be done in different modes of nature. Some people fast because in the wrong way, for a political motive, or to kind of make some kind of statement, or they fast without any kind of fasting, without any kind of reference to scriptural regulation of how to fast. They just do something whimsically. Yeah, like in the history of the world, there has been crazy types of fasting that people have done thinking that it may improve their health, or fasting that was done for some political motivation or something. This is fasting in the mode of ignorance, because it's not done with any reference to Shastra. So if one fasts with no reference to scriptural injunctions, this is also mentioned, Shruti Smriti Purana Di Pancharatra Vidim Vina Ekantiki Harer Bhakti Utpata Yeva Kalpate. Shastra says that if you do bhakti but you don't do it with reference to how the scripture is telling you to do it, then it's simply a disturbance to society. So that kind of certain types of fasting which are in the mode of ignorance, with no direction, for no higher purpose. Then we can say there is fasting in the mode of passion. For example, some people fast so that they can get a good husband or a good wife, or for other such motivations. Then there is seeking something, some material gain. Sometimes even when fasting is glorified in Shastra, then some material benefit is given. That if you do this, then this will happen. If you do this fast, then this will happen to you. So although this is higher than ignorance because it's done according to Shastra, but it's done with a material motivation. And then fasting which is done for purification, fasting which is done so that we can control the mind, control the senses, that kind of fasting is in the mode of goodness. But the ultimate type of fasting is to use fasting to feast on spiritual practice. Therefore, another word for fasting or Ekadashi is upavas. Upavas, vas means to reside, and upa means close. So fasting, the other double etymological meaning of it is to reside close to the Lord. In other words, the fasting is not the real thing. The fasting is just the opportunity to do more for Krishna. And therefore, that kind of fasting is beyond the modes of nature, because it's not done for anything apart from opening more time to serve Krishna in love. And that's how fasting can be in different modes, Ekadashi, like that. Is that okay? Yes, and then, or Rukma Prabhu, and then.
In those three verses, in the mode of ignorance and passion, the word used was separatist.
Yes.
And in the mode of goodness, the word used was goodness. Devotee. So mode of goodness is not a separatist also?
So you said in the translation, Srila Prabhupada never used the word separatist, right? Yeah. I think if you look in the word for word, though, he does use the word separatist. Let me just double check. 329. 10. Yeah, you see. He still uses the word separatist. So he hasn't said it in the translation, but it's still separatist. Because the only one who's not a separatist is the one who has no other separate motivation. Anya abhilashita shunyam. Anya abhilashita shunyam means that there's no other motivation separate from anukulyena krishnanu, pleasing Krishna. Therefore it's very high, isn't it? Pure devotional service is very high. Even done for purification, that is still a separatist mentality, because there is a sense of me, I, it's for me. No, there's nothing like that in devotional service, pure devotional service. So still separatist, yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj,
Hare
my
Krishna.
question is, I'm just confused a little bit. It talked about anger, and it says that it's in the mode of darkness. But what if your action is in the mode of darkness, but your intention is in the mode of goodness? Like sometimes, even as devotees, we know, okay, something bad is good for you, but sometimes we get angry at Krishna. So is that also darkness?
If you see these descriptions of devotional service in the different modes, what they're basically talking about is one's inner bhav. Yeah? Material enjoyment, fame, opulence, this is one's inner bhav. Yeah? And these things, envious, proud, violent, angry. So a devotee's inner bhav is never anger. But a devotee's action may come out as angry. Prabhupada said the anger of a pure devotee is like a deep ocean. On the surface there is waves, but deep down there is incredible calmness. So when you get to the point where you're angry on the external, but inside you're completely calm, then you can understand this pure spiritual anger, simply exercised externally for some higher purpose. But what this is referring to is when your inner bhav is angry. Krodhat bhavati sammoha. The type of anger that creates a delusion. The type of anger that clouds your intelligence. The type of anger that makes you then act in very unhelpful ways. And so you see all of these things. Srila Prabhupada, we could say, externally was also angry. We could even say externally Srila Prabhupada was showing some opulence, It's funny, Srila Prabhupada, he once told Dhananjaya Prabhu, he came to India, Srila Prabhupada, and he said to Dhananjaya, I want you to order a Cadillac from America and get it shipped to India. Okay, Cadillac, sannyasi in a Cadillac. But then it went further. And then Prabhupada said, and when the Cadillac comes, I want you to write on the side of the Cadillac, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, spiritual master of America. He said, that will impress the Indians, and then we'll be able to preach. So sometimes even Srila Prabhupada created situations of opulence, situations like that. But his inner bhav was never that. He was saying, I was satisfied to live in a mud hut. Srila Prabhupada, was he looking to increase his fame on the external? Inside, that desire was not there. But yes, he was trying to spread his influence. He was going and, So yes, externally we may do things. Externally we do so many things in devotional service. But internally, that is not our bhav. Internally, the only bhav is Krishna's pleasure, Krishna's happiness, Krishna's service. Is that okay? Yes. I'll just show you one other thing because Prabhu's question. This is another interesting verse. I'll show you this verse from Gita. Just to give you a sense of how different verses can actually show you very, very different things. So this is a very famous verse from the Gita. Agyascha shradadhanascha shamshaya atma vinashyati nayam lokostina paro nasukham samsayatmanaha. Because someone was talking about doubts, I thought, let me end on this one for today. So this is Srila Prabhupada's translation of this verse. But ignorant and faithless persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. For the doubting soul, there is happiness neither in this world nor the next. Just to give you an idea of how different acharyas look at different verses. So what Srila Prabhupada has done here, he's taken the verse and he's merged all of these qualities into one person. So the person is ignorant, therefore they're faithless, and therefore naturally they have doubts. So Srila Prabhupada has said, this is one person. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, this is three different people. And he says, this is not just three different people, these are three different people who are in a gradation. So he says, the lowest is the ignorant person, because they don't even know what is God, who is God, and what they should do. So he says the agya is the lowest. Then he says a little higher than the agya is the ashradadhana, the faithless, because the faithless know, but they don't have the faith to actually start practicing something. But then Chakravarti Thakur says higher than the ashradadhana is the samsayatma, because he knows and he's practicing, but while practicing is constantly having doubts. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says this is not one person, this is three types of different people. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says one more thing in his commentary. He says, out of these three, which one do you think is the lowest? The faithless, the ignorant, the faithless, or the doubting? Which one do you think is the lowest? Doubting. Why do you think the doubting is lowest?
Because if you doubt, then why are you still doing the practicing?
Okay, but at least the doubting person knows, at least they're trying. Why would they be the lowest? Why would they be the most unfortunate? You're right, but you have to get the reason right as well. We would naturally think that the faithless person, the ignorant person is the lowest. We would naturally, because that person doesn't even know anything. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says actually the samsayatma is the lowest. And that's why in this verse he says, Krishna mentions the samsayatma twice. The others are only mentioned once. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says Krishna mentions samsayatma twice because he wants to underline that the doubting person is actually the worst. And the reason Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says is because he says they're so close and yet so far. Because they're right there. They're right on the doorway to eternity, but now because of the doubts which are coming in their mind constantly day to day, they're not taking the final step. If someone's in a marathon race and they drop out in the first 10 minutes, okay, that's... But if someone's on the final lap, they're right near the finishing line and then they decide to give up, oh no, that's agonizing. So therefore we may think, we're better than the Agyas, we're better than the Ashradadhana. But if we still have samsayatma, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, we're actually the most unfortunate because we're so close and yet so far. And therefore, like this, different verses of Shastra can be seen in so many different ways. And that's why you can keep reading the same books and learn more and more new and beautiful things from them. Okay, the time is 8:15. I'm not going to keep you longer than this. Thank you so much for coming. And in the next few days we'll be discussing further. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.